Apple is looking to move production out of China. That's because of ongoing problems with COVID restrictions, supply chain issues, and labor unrest.
Is this the end of iPhone City as we know it? The big tech company is changing its production process, with factories moving away from the world's factory floor. Let's take a look at what's happening in the tech industry. The big brand tech company, Apple, is famous for its iPhones, iPads, and MacBooks. Well, they've been making some changes to their manufacturing process, the biggest change in their history. Apple is speeding up its move out of China. It's quite a significant change. China was like their go-to place for manufacturing because of the huge number of workers and the well-set supply chains, but guess what? Lately, Apple has been gradually shifting its manufacturing away from China. So why is Apple making this move? Well, it's all about not risking everything in one place. You see, if they depend too much on one country, like China, for making their products, it can be risky. Imagine if there's some economic shakeup or political unrest in that country. It could cause problems in Apple's operations. So, by spreading out their production to different countries, Apple is playing it safe. Do you know what else is pushing Apple away from China? Well, it's a trade drama between the US and China. This conflict has resulted in increased taxes and more trading regulations, which means it's getting pricier and tougher for Apple to keep doing its thing in China. In response to these challenges, they're packing up and moving their production to other places, especially India and Vietnam. These countries have some benefits that can make them pretty appealing, so they're turning out to be pretty good alternatives to China. Foxconn, a big player in the tech world, is also jumping on the trend and moving out of China along with Apple. This is a pretty big deal, you know. Foxconn was a major player in China's economy, providing loads of jobs and boosting local businesses around its factories, so their move is definitely going to shake things up. For a long time, Apple has been making its stuff in China. Foxconn has been a key player for Apple and others, with factories in China where it puts together all these products. So, in 2020, Foxconn decided to change its style a bit. They began shifting the assembly lines for iPads and MacBooks from China to Vietnam. We're talking about a significant shift that happened, so the factory in Ningbo, China stopped producing iPads and MacBooks. That's quite a change. As a result, the factory started to become less busy and it wasn't as productive as before, and slowly became less crucial to the company's day-to-day operations. So, the Ningbo factory is almost like a ghost town now, with barely any people around and hardly any products coming off the line. It must be very quiet and mostly empty. Let's shift our focus to Guangxi. If what happened to Foxconn in Guangxi is anything like what we saw in Nanning, it suggests a similar storyline. Perhaps Foxconn had another factory in Guangxi, where they manufactured a range of their products and, just like in Nanning, they might have decided to relocate these production lines elsewhere. This action would have caused a decline at the Guangxi factory and mirrored the current state of the Nanjing plant. When a major player like Apple or Foxconn decides to pack up, it can cause big changes or disturbances in the local economy. Take Foxconn's factory in Nanjing, China, for instance, at its peak, was at a bustling hub of activity with an unimaginable 50,000 employees. The operation was massive, even down to the resources needed to feed the workforce. We're talking about 60 tons of rice, 280 pigs, a staggering 1.2 million eggs, and 80,000 chickens, all in a day's work. But now the factory stands almost deserted, and those jobs, sadly, are no more. The situation has resulted in what's often referred to as massive layoffs. A layoff is when a company decides to let go of employees because it doesn't require their services anymore. So, in this scenario, when the factory is either shutting down or relocating, a large number of workers have unfortunately found themselves out of work. It's a tough situation, isn't it? The departure of these big companies doesn't just impact the factory workers, it also hits the local businesses hard. You see, these smaller enterprises and shops were the ones catering to the factories and their employees. For instance, think about all the food suppliers who were delivering rice, pigs, eggs, and chickens all to the factory's cafeteria. Not to mention the businesses offering housing, transportation, and other services all to the factory workers. Now, with the factory nearly empty, these local businesses have lost a significant client, and they might even be able to find it tough to keep their doors open. That's what we mean when we say local businesses deserted. So, what are some of the main reasons why they are moving their lineups? Apple, the global tech giant, is known for its strategic decisions. Recently, they've been slowly moving their manufacturing operations to India and Vietnam. This is a pretty big deal, and it's happening for a variety of reasons. So, the first thing to note is that Apple's supply chain was pretty much all about China. But then things like political issues and health crises, COVID-19, being a prime example, made Apple rethink its strategy. they decided to spread their wings a bit and set up shop in India and Vietnam. This way, they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, which helps them manage risks better. It's all about toughness, you know? Next, let's discuss the benefits of manufacturing in India and Vietnam. India, with its huge population and huge birth rate, is a goldmine for Apple. It's not just a great place to sell its products, but also an excellent spot for manufacturing. Why, you ask? Well, India has a large number of young folks who are ready and willing to learn. This is a big plus for industries like electronics manufacturing that need a lot of workers for smooth sailing. And then there's Vietnam. It's got a bit of a cost advantage, with labor being cheaper compared to China, which makes it pretty attractive for manufacturers who are all about cost efficiency. Plus, Vietnam has managed to pull in quite a few Apple suppliers to set up operations there, which has really boosted its reputation as a go-to place for manufacturing. On top of that, Apple's assembly buddies, consisting of Foxconn and Pegatron, have already showed their commitment by spending their money. They've invested in setting up factories, production lines, and even training personnel in both India and Vietnam. These investments are like laying the foundation for handling a bigger chunk of the final assembly and packaging of Apple's products outside of China. It's all about preparing for the future. Next, Apple has cleverly changed the design of its products. They've made it more modular and easier to transfer across different facilities. This means that the manufacturing process can be duplicated without much hassle in various locations. This has significantly cut down the complexity of manufacturing, making it feasible for factories in India to manufacture iPhones almost at the same time as the factories in China. Last but not least, let's not forget the local incentive policies in India and Vietnam. These policies attract foreign companies like Apple. They often include tax breaks, subsidies, and other benefits that make it financially appealing for companies to set up shop in these countries, like rolling out the red carpet for businesses. But let's not forget, this kind of shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that takes several years, and it's not like China can be replaced instantly. After all, China, with its army of skilled workers and cutting-edge manufacturing processes, has been the mainstay of global electronics manufacturing. However, Apple's recent actions hint at a slow but sure change in this scenario. So, what are the potential benefits and challenges that India and Vietnam may experience as a result of Apple's move? Starting with the benefits, both India and Vietnam are set to see a surge in job openings. Apple's manufacturing operations need many hands on deck, which could lead to more jobs in these areas. Plus, having a world-renowned company like Apple set up shop could act like a magnet for other companies to follow suit, giving their economies a nice little boost. But it's not all smooth sailing. There are some pretty big problems to overcome. One of the main ones is the need for a major upgrade in infrastructure. Both India and Vietnam would have to pump a lot of money into improving their infrastructure to support the large-scale manufacturing operations of a company like Apple. Can you guess what's next for Apple in the US? And the Apple users? Comment down your thoughts and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.